How would you recommend that we do seek to engage these ideas, to offer the hope of the gospel to people in Christian charity, but yet in an uncompromising way, trying to deliver this message in love, but also in faithfulness?
Yeah, it's a tough question. My first response would be the first thing to do is we need to understand the culture in which we're operating so we know precisely what we're up against. Uh, Secondly, there's a sense, I mean, you and I, we're OPC guys. You know, I want to say, well,
Yeah,
secondly, the other thing is we carry on doing what we're doing. We keep preaching the gospel. We keep administering the means of
right.
grace. But I think that needs to be backed up with a strong sense of community. One of the things
Hmm.
that most struck me about Rosaria Butterfield's writings and her conversion and her move from being part of the LGBTQ to being the wife of a Reformed Presbyterian pastor, that's got to be one of the most dramatic turnarounds in history, I would think, is, as a conversion, is how
Although
much
you and I
community.
are pretty queer in the older use of the term.
I guess so. But I think community is important. And I'm a historian, so the question I'm always asking is, you know, has this kind of has the church been in this situation before? Obviously, there are aspects of the modern world that are unique. The internet, globalization, there are all kinds of elements of a modern culture that make life very different today to even what it was 50 years ago. But we do have certain analogy with, I think, the church in the second century. Church in the second century was marginal, was regarded as very marginal. It was seen as, it was little understood. It was regarded as immoral. Hey, they eat body and blood. They have brothers and sisters married. You know, wow, this is immoral stuff. Uh, and it was also seen as seditious. You know, Jesus is Lord. Well, where does that leave Caesar? Are you meeting together to plot against the emperor?
Right,
The
right.
church responded, I think, in a number of ways, and one of them was it was a strong community. It also didn't really, if you read the Greek apologists, they didn't really adopt a culture war mentality so much as a leave us alone, we'll be good citizens to the extent that we are able to be good
They were
citizens.
pilgrims. They understood
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Exodus narrative and the lessons of Hebrews. And that doesn't
yeah.
mean just to ball up in a hole and have no interaction with culture, but we have to have a
No,
different mindset, like Colossians 3, 1 through 4. Set your mind on the things in heaven, the things above.
yeah. So I think the church needs to recapture something of that. We need to be a strong community and we need to be good citizens to the extent that we can. The second century, they wouldn't sacrifice to Caesar as a god, but they would serve in the Roman army.
Or pay taxes. Yeah.
They, yeah, they paid their
Sure,
taxes. So
sure.
I think we need to capture something of that. I already see some of that in Europe, but secularization in Europe was a longer process. We've been further along in that process. In America, it's happened really rather rapidly. The church has been shunted to the margins or is being shunted to the margins at breathtaking speed. So we've not had a chance to get used to the fact that we don't own the country anymore. And the danger in that kind of moment is we just get angry, we just get combative, you know, we launch our forces at the Battle of Frankenhausen and we get totally wiped out. Yeah, that's the kind of
Yeah,
temptation. I
yeah.
would say no. It's time for thinking about what it means to be the church in a hostile culture, what it means to be a good Christian citizen in a hostile culture, what it
Yeah.
means to be a community. The LGBTQ was successful because it was a community. These people loved each other and looked after each other.
Hmm.
Maybe there's something there the church can learn from.
Yeah, and I think we also need to expand our notion of the church to true Catholic notion, small c Catholic, but also the global notion of the church, the universal church. We're not just a
Yeah,
community in our local zip code, but
yeah,
we as a church, yes, it's important to emphasize local churches. We can't live without them. We need to be embodied. We need to be a church in our local area and community. But we're also a spiritual body throughout the world and throughout the ages that transcends socio-political, cultural, geographical differences. And if we remember those things, I think that truly is a promising way in which the church can move forward amidst the challenges that the world presents. They might be different from region to region, but if we lose sight of that, of the church as a whole, I think we start to flounder a bit.
Yeah, I couldn't have put it better. I think that's excellent.
Mm.
I was chatting to a Roman Catholic recently and asked him, "Hey, what do you think about the decline of your church in America?" And his comment to me was interesting. He said, well, he said, as Catholics, we're brought up to think of the church worldwide. He said, so, well, it's depressing. He said, I don't lie awake worrying about it because I'm always thinking of my church as worldwide.
Yeah.
Easier to do that when you just have, if you like, the one denomination
guy.
worldwide.
True.
But I thought, well, there's something interesting there. That yeah, I do tend to think rather denominationally, rather nationally. I need to expand my ecclesial imaginary, if you like, to intuit the church as a global phenomenon.
Yeah.
So I think you put it beautifully.